Hi all, I hope you are having a great day. Let's dive right into it. Last week I made this video, right? Or rather 2 weeks ago I made this video, and over there we went through how we can improve the startup performance of a React Native app, or I would say any app for that matter. What we essentially did was identified what all is happening in the startup or the bootstrap of our application and saw which all tasks are asynchronous and independent and moved them early, right? Did them much before anything else happens, and also probably did those in parallel, that okay, they are independent, they need not wait for each other, don't do it sequentially. And that's good, right? That was so good for our case that just this small few lines of change led to 2 times improvement in startup performance, right? At the same time, I also mentioned that because ultimately the code that you have written in JavaScript, that has to be loaded up, right? It has to be initialized and it has to be executed, parsed, executed, all that has to happen. Of course, Hermes in React Native makes it faster because it already converts it into bytecode, but still something has to happen, right? Before your first line of code can run. The smaller the code, the faster it would be, right? It's quite funny in performance world. People say that the best way to make your code faster is to not have it in the first place, right? Not doing anything is much faster, right? So that's great, but how? Like, I can't just delete all my code, right? So one thing I want to point out over here is that smaller projects that 1 or 2 developers are handling, it's quite easy to handle tech debt, right? Because you know what you have added, you know ins and outs of your application, you can delete it, you know that quite well. But imagine a project where it is an app going on for say 6 years, 7 years, right? And imagine that there are 20, 30 engineers working on it, right? Some engineers leave the company, some new engineers come, some projects come up out of nowhere, some projects get shelved because of business reasons, some tasks within the company never let you prioritize focusing on the tech debt, right? All these things can happen. So in larger companies, it's harder, right, to even solve this. At the same time, solving it will be very gratifying. And that is what happened last week, right? So I put this out on LinkedIn that Mihir, my friend and colleague at Udan, is exceptionally good at his work. And he saw this and he improved our app JS pack size, not the startup's time, but the size of the bundle. He reduced that by basically half, right? And that's awesome, right? And we could see that already this was impacting our startup time performance. So not only our code is lighter, now our code is also a bit faster. And our CI/CD pipelines are also running a bit faster because there's just less stuff to do. So everything is great over here, right? So it's interesting how it's harder to do this, not because it's complex of a problem, but just you never get time to do this, you never prioritize this. At the same time, just doing that is so gratifying that almost on all fronts your team productivity improves. But this is not as simple, right? You can always try to do it yourself, but some tooling will help, right? Measurement will always be helpful. So I want to highlight some of the things that enable this to happen in the first place. So first of all, we would like to measure our app's size over each release, right? That is what this graph is basically, right? Like, this is so helpful that this could just as is be used to demonstrate what we achieved, right? That is the power of a good metric, that you can just show it to anyone and they can understand, oh, this is what you achieved. So this was a very small change, right? I get the information about the JS pack size. In our release dashboard that we have internally, I just plotted it with the size over the last few releases, and the diff can be also shown, right? So if it is a reduction, it's shown in green. If it is an increase, it is shown in red. And that is great, right? Each release, the on-call can just look at it and say that that looks like that this PR reduced some code. Let me just double check everything is fine, right? Or our size has quite increased drastically. Let me just check what have we done. Right, that this measurement makes people start thinking about this problem more, right? Without this, people will just release, right? They wouldn't care what 500 KB or even 1 MB change would feel like, right? That's not very intuitive, but by viewing it, people start thinking about this problem. And once they have seen that, oh, I did this and I saw this impact, something happens in our brain and we start doing it more and more, right? And that's what happened, right? It started off with a very small decrease, and then we kept on going on for that 1-2 weeks, and that was awesome. So key highlight number one, that you probably should start measuring it, right? If you have tech debt, start measuring it. That is going to help, be it in unused screens, be it unused APIs, be it low traffic components, screens, APIs, whatever it is, right? Just start measuring it. That's cool. Second thing is that, okay, I get that our size is so and so and we want to reduce it, but how do I know what to delete? So this can be very laborious work, right? Either you use a lot of tools like dependency graph analysis, and then you try it out, you give it to the testing team, they figure it out that, oh, this is actually crucial for a code. That can be quite tricky. So what we did was that we utilized our analytics dashboard that we use via Percept. So Percept is like any other analytics platform like Mixpanel and whatnot. Over there we have for each screen what was the daily active user count, right? And in our app, so thing is that the screens that don't report at all or were never live will never come to our analytics dashboard, but they are still in our code, right? Because of someone adding it to our important files or importing it in the overall screens that are registered, but it was never accessed by anyone, so it will not come up on analytics dashboard. So you have half information in your app and half information in the analytics dashboard. So what I made over there was a simple dashboard, right? Wherein in our app we know how many screens we have, so that we can, how many of them are registered, so that we can lay out very easily. And that again gives you a count that, okay, there are 205 screens in this case. This used to be much higher. This used to be some 300 or so. So that is one that you can, now you have visibility what all we are dealing with. Second thing is that by adding some basic integration with Percept, or it could be any analytics dashboard, what we want is that for this screen, what was the daily active user for last, say, 3 months? Depending on your business case, that those numbers you can change. And from that, simply we can just loop through all of the screens and get that number and show it to the developer as well. So now I can very quickly see that, okay, so this screen particularly has 0 users. So this looks like it hasn't been used. I can click on metrics and open the dashboard and see, inspect further that is it true? What is the trend like? Maybe it's not used last month, but maybe it was highly used 2 months ago, whatever it is. From that, the developer can get much more insight into how these things are being used. And when they have full confidence that, okay, this particular screen, nobody is using it, never has been used for last 2 years, for example, that's a very safe candidate to delete, right? And when you delete a screen, you can delete all the relevant components if they are only used by that screen. You can delete a lot of utility functions that are only used by that screen, images if there are any, right? All that can be done. And yeah, that's how you get to manage your tech debt. So it's a small video, but just wanted to highlight that to improve on your tech debt front, measure things, create some small dashboards, get some visibility out there, and you'll see that your team culture will start changing a bit. People will start relying on these tools to get quick wins, right? Easy wins. And it's, while I say easy, it's actually super great because your app size is small, your startup performance is better, it's a very tangible win, right? So it's not easy in the sense that there's no benefit as such, but it's easy in the effort if you have all these tools in place. So that's it. That's my video. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.